Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of BizTwins, where we're going to give you a little bit of introduction about who we are and our ideas around what this might look like, and hopefully some of that will be interesting to you along the way. David, why don't you start by just telling everyone a little bit about what it was like for us growing up on a farm, being twins, doing that, and that sort of thing.
Well, let's see. I mean, we could tell lots of really good stories or lots of really silly stories, but growing up on a farm was probably the coolest part about it was you had a very big playground, right? I mean, we had lots of room to run around and do the things that we wanted to do. Lots of room for creativity. I remember us being little inventors from almost day one, right? As far back as I can remember, we were creating
Yeah,
things and
for
making things
sure.
from scratch. So being on the farm was, it was interesting because we could do whatever we want. We had a lot of freedom, I think, a lot of freedom to think the way that we wanted to think and, make things happen the way we wanted to happen.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to, like you said, be able to uh, do whatever we wanted to, really, in terms of running around on the farm, building things, experimenting with stuff, uh, learning from what it was like to raise cows, raise horses, raise pigs, all of the things related to that. And I know we're going to get into some details around that in future episodes for sure, because we've got lots of stories around the farm and what it was like growing up on the farm.
What's your favorite thing that we built together?
Oh Lord, there's so many things. We used to tear things apart and put crazy stuff together. We would build uh, pretend robots and that sort of thing. I was an electric gadget guy, so I loved putting together things that had motors in them. And we did this one robot. I remember. I don't remember what it was built out of exactly, but we had put two motors on it, so we had a long wire and we could direct the robot and make it move and that sort of thing. So that was kind of fun. That's the one thing I remember. What about you?
Actually, the robot was exactly the one that I was going to think about, and it was funny because I remember we were really trying to get more weight in the robot, and we were too young. We didn't have enough, experience with engineering and that kind of stuff, or electrical circuits or anything. But I do remember thinking, man, if we had a bigger battery and a bigger motor, we could make a bigger robot go. And I remember trying to figure out how do you balance the weight of the battery with the power of the motor that you could actually get to drive it. I remember thinking that, and we were young, probably, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
how old?
don't. I have no idea how old we were then. That was
We were young, though. I
yeah,
mean, enough that we were building most of the body out of wood. I
yeah,
remember that,
yeah,
like
for
in,
sure.
in in boxes. So yeah, I enjoyed making the things. Duct tape was obviously a huge tool for us at the point that we were talking about right now, but
Yeah, mom and my grandmother Mimi, as we called her, she was all about. They were both all about, hey, making sure we had plenty of duct tape, because if we had duct tape, we had something to do, right?
that's right. That's right.
What do you
Yeah,
remember about work ethic and things we had to do in terms of growing up on the farm? That was the not as fun part about growing up on a farm, right?
I remember thinking that I would figure out something to do with my life that would make me never have to do that again, while at the same time knowing that I could always work that hard if I had to. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like particularly the years in the tomato field, which we definitely are going to
There's
talk
going to be a
about
whole
some later.
episode about the tomato field, probably. And for
Yeah,
people that know us, they've heard the stories of the tomato field already, right? So
yeah.
that'll be a good one.
But I
So,
remember that knowing for sure that I would never probably work that hard again, right? Not in some negative way, but in a really positive way. Like it is just something that it gets ingrained into you that you have to see it through and you have to work really really hard.
Yeah, and we'll talk in future episodes too about how we apply that to our day to day life today, because I think that is a big part of things that I learned by growing up the way that we did, and really good stuff coming out of that. So just for you guys who maybe don't know us as well, so we grew up on a dairy farm. We grew up as dairy farmers, and then in the early 80s, things were tough for farmers. And so we wound up selling the dairy cows and going into what's called truck crops. So it's vegetables that you grow and can sell as a truckload of vegetables. And so we did corn and cabbage and sweet potatoes and the dreaded tomatoes, which we'll talk about again in a future episode. And then later on, my dad got into the barbecue business, and so a large portion of our lives was around cooking barbecue and running a barbecue restaurant. Part of that, started in a small hole in the wall kind of place in Clemson, South Carolina. And as we started that process of what was it like to start a new business, and this is a whole nother thing too, this whole entrepreneur thing,
Right.
which we'll do for sure. As we got into running a restaurant, my dad thought it was a great idea to also buy a bar that was right next to it, a famous bar called the Esso Club. And David, we learned a little bit about growing up at the Esso Club, didn't
Yeah, just a few things. So, first of all, I learned how to hustle pool,
we? Come
right?
on. I was talking about that just this week with a friend of
Sometimes
mine.
you got to make some cash flow, and that's the way to do it. Sometimes you got to hustle. So there's a whole thing on hustling we could talk about. But and also we learned how to do a bunch of electrical wiring. I mean, we did a lot of the rehab of that restaurant ourselves. I mean, it was a lot of hard work.
It's one of many
Um,
times that you almost electrocuted yourself. So we'll talk about those.
there's lots of those.
That's
I got
right.
scars for that.
That's
There's
right.
lots of
I know.
those.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. It's
but
maybe we'll do that
you know,
sometime too.
I always used to joke though that Dad left probably the hardest job on the planet, being a dairy farmer, and went into the second hardest job on the planet, being a restaurant
That's the
owner.
truth,
I mean,
isn't it? So a
it was
lot of
hard
long
work.
hours, a lot of hard work for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
look, maybe we'll tell stories about the Esso Club one time around too. So coming out of that, I mean, just a little bit about our college days and all of that kind of thing is probably a good thing to cover too, just to give some history. We grew up in this little town called Pendleton, South Carolina. It's in the upstate of South Carolina and not far from Clemson. Dad was a Clemson guy, and although I had dreams of going other places, I wound up at Clemson and majoring in finance and trying to figure out what was next in my life. And David, you want to tell a little bit about where you went?
Yeah, I took a different path. I'll reference back to my statement about getting off the farm and staying off the farm. But much to my father's dismay, I went to art school. I left art school. Went to my final year of high school at North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston Salem, and then went on to the Maryland Institute College of Art up in Baltimore. And whenever you think, oh, that's pretty extreme social thing or whatever, if you're at a party or whatever, you can always just say, I went to art school, man. I mean,
So you
you
got a
see
built-in excuse to act however you wanted to. Is that what
you
you're saying?
see everything at art school.
Yeah,
Is
that's
all
the
I'm gonna
truth.
say. I might not have participated at all, but you saw everything at
Yeah.
art school. But it was a different experience. I mean, just in terms of being able to go from being a little town guy to being at one of the most prestigious art schools in the world, really, at the time, Maryland Institute, and still a very prestigious school, producing world class artists day to day. I remember a story that we'll have to talk about, but I remember a business related story about me getting into art school.
That's right.
I believe
Uh,
you were an
I
agent.
think that should be a whole story in itself. But
Yeah, we'll have to
the
come
short
back to that.
version is I pretended to be the agent of my brother. So we could negotiate the best deal getting into art school. So that
It
was a fun
worked
story. It
too.
did
It
work.
was very effective. It
Yeah,
was very
it
effective.
did. It did for sure. So we all we went off and did our own things, and coming out of college, I went to work for a software company, did the tech support, call in kind of thing, and after a few years of that, had an opportunity to do a startup kind of thing, and then tried a second startup in Denver, Colorado, which turned into a real mess. Maybe there's an episode for that too, but wound up needing something to do. And so I'll let everybody get caught up on your business dealings, and then we're going to get to how we came together in business too.
Yeah, so right out of school, I went to Berkeley, California, got out there. I had worked at some frame shops and galleries and that kind of stuff through school, just regular old retail business, just trying to make a little bit of money on the side while I was at college. It got out to Berkeley and started working at a large frame shop out there. And then 3 days after I moved everything out there, I got a pink slip. They were going to close that whole section of this giant art business. They were going to close the frame shop and let everybody go. And I looked around, and there were a whole bunch of picture framers in that shop. And I kind of looked at the number of pieces that were all around, and I said, I think we could do this with a lot less people if we change the way we do these things. And so, with no business background, not like you, no finance background, just art school,
Right.
I wrote my first business plan and handed it to the owner, and he let me give it a shot, and we turned around the business. And to the day, the entire rest of the life of that business, he ran on that production schedule that I built out and rehired picture framers and made that business profitable. Um, but I got a taste is what it was. I mean,
Yeah.
I really understood that creating a business is a creative process too. Um, and so that's what sort of led me through back to Baltimore area. At that point, I participated in just kind of as a worker at an art gallery there. After working there for just a few months, the owner was getting ready to sell the business, and I hustled my way into buying that business. So that's a whole episode in and
Yeah,
of itself.
absolutely, it
How that
is
happened.
right.
Yeah.
And how'd you come back to go ahead and tell people how'd you come back to South Carolina so I can transition into how we started
Oh,
the company
yeah,
together?
right.
Yeah.
My wife and I had decided that we were going to move back to South Carolina just to kind of get out of the city and those kind of things. And I had started working for a software company. I was traveling around the United States doing some training seminars and those kind of things for other art gallery and frame shop owners. And you had to have a sponsor each time you went on the road, and a software company was my sponsor for that. And so I started sort of working on the user interface with them and some small things like that. And then when we moved back to South Carolina, we had a small gallery in Pendleton for a little while. And you want to take it from there? I mean, you want to pick up where we started working together?
Yeah, I'll do that. After the debacle in Denver is the way I think about it. I was We were talking, and we said, you know what, if ever there was a time that we should try to do something together, now's the time. And in a panic, I came back to South Carolina, and like a bunch of fools, we started a software company together. And we had some great ideas, look, we'll talk all about business formation and the kinds of things that we learned in that process. But um, uh, what a cool experience to take your creativity around user interface and design and that sort of thing, and my background in technology and the hardcore technology that started that business, and together built a really nice business over the course of really 10 plus years.
Right.
And maybe you could tell the story about spinning out a business and ultimately the paths that led us to where we are now.
Yeah, so one of the things that we recognized was that we had gotten a number of um, medical oriented supply chain customers, and really our other company had become mostly a consulting company. Really, if we're
That's
being
true.
honest about it,
Yep.
we were doing custom software development and building some toolkits and those kind of things so that we could do those more rapidly. But essentially, it was a consulting business, and as part of that, we had gotten several medical supply chain customers, and I saw an opportunity with my business partner today, Tom Woodson, that we could spin that company out and really make a go of it in a sort of a defined vertical. And so that led me to work with you to spin out the medical business. I think you continued at the time doing the
That's
consulting
right.
piece, right?
That's right.
And I sort of went in a different direction in this specific place, and it gave us the opportunity to grow two different kinds of businesses at the time. And it was at the time really good for both of us, I
Yeah,
think.
no doubt. And I think I really came into my love for consulting when
Right.
I was doing that, right? As
Right.
I was taking these tools that we had developed and developing solutions around those. And just kind of fast forward a little bit, I went through some life changing events in my life that really made me decide to close down that consulting business. And from there, after a couple of small hops, I wound up doing consulting full time for a company that did Microsoft Dynamics CRM consulting, and it started out in the ground floor. And that's a story in itself. Maybe we'll tell another time, but worked my way up into that business and went through an acquisition there. Went through a short spell thinking I wanted to be a CIO, which was, again, probably a story into itself. And then realized, hey, what I really love is consulting. And so got plugged into a great business based in New York City. And that business just recently got acquired. And so that kind of brings us up full circle to
Yeah.
where I am now. And David, maybe you can give an update on maybe your consulting arm in addition to
Yeah. Right.
MedProcure in the business. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in addition to supply chain, one of the things that I've worked on personally is some other, I kind of got the consulting bug again. I mean, we had some opportunities that just didn't fit into what was coming up on our plate for our MedProcure supply chain company. And so Quattlebaum Services sort of grew out of that. I was already providing employee services for the other company. And so we had relationships with developers, and we had a lot of new opportunities that were coming in. And so that sort of led me back in that direction a little bit as well. And so I'm kind of running that parallel path right now. It certainly is worth spending some time in one of these episodes on the effect of COVID on business, and
For
what we had to
sure.
do to
Yeah.
make those transformations and those kind of things. But that's sort of what led me there. I think that understanding our personalities and what makes us tick. That's something that we're going to get into here. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
you being a hero has you like being a hero, dude, and being a consultant. Really, seriously, being a consultant is a perfect niche for that hero
Yeah, no
sense. I
doubt
mean,
about that.
you like walking in and making things work when nobody else can, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that's an important part of any good consultant, honestly,
Yeah.
that you really enjoy doing that and solving problems, and especially problems that others can't solve. I do like the emergency kind of situation where I'm
Right.
stepping in to fix the emergency. So that gives you guys just a little bit of background on who we are and that sort of thing. Uh, why are we here? Why does anybody care about any of this stuff? We think we've learned a heck of a lot from growing up on the farm, from being entrepreneurs, from being twins and the quirkiness around twins, and so we have some episodes planned coming up. Yeah, we do have the same shirts on. I don't know if you guys.
Not intentionally either. That's the good thing. It's like a plug for Untuck It, maybe.
That's
I
right,
mean,
exactly. So we're going to have some episodes coming up around some of the things we learned at the farm and how we've applied those in our lives since then. And then we're going to also have some episodes on developing a business, everything from formation to growth, and the things we did well and the things that we made mistakes on, and the things that we learned through those mistakes, and things I've learned since then from a business perspective. And something I'm really looking forward to that I think is going to be a lot of fun is we hope to do a whole series on other twins, and especially other twins that are doing business things together. And we have some specific twins that we're thinking about. So depending on how things go, I'm excited about doing that because it'll be just fun just to chit chat about twins and working together in business stuff like that. So, David, any final thoughts before we wrap up this first episode?
no, man, I'm looking forward to it. We got lots of stories. I mean, all I hear from my friends are, "You really ought to record those stories sometime." So
Yeah,
here we are. Let's try it.
yeah, for sure. And for those of you who have sat around a fire with me or had a bourbon with me here or there, which David, I think you've got some now, but for any of you guys who have sat around with me, you've heard some of these stories, and hopefully these things are going to be things that will resonate with you and might just be fun, or maybe you'll learn something along the way too. So do hope that you'll join us and take this journey with us as we're trying to put some things out there that may be a little uncomfortable at times, but excited to share with people. Any final thoughts, Dave? Is that it?
No, I'm good, man. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Join us again soon.
Take care.